Jumping into another episode of the Stuff Your Bookkeeper Isn't Telling You. And this week, we're going to be taking you to Paris. We're going to talk about some interesting, fun experiences that the TL Turner Group participated in. Stay tuned. Welcome back to another episode of the Stuff Your Bookkeeper Isn't Telling You. I am Lola Turner, your host, and I am welcoming back Mr. Terrell Turner, my co-host, fresh off the boat from Paris. Terrell, welcome back.
Thank you. It was definitely a great trip. I will say I was excited to come home. But the journey of getting home was very interesting. I mean,
tell us a little bit more about this journey, please.
I think I recapped it a little bit where I think it was like for me to get home, it was just the day before I traveled. It was and the day before and in 48 hours, it was like 5 trains, 2 buses, 3 Ubers, 2 plane rides, a stop in Iceland, and then finally getting back to North Carolina. So yeah, it was definitely an adventure getting home. So I'm looking forward to sharing a lot about that.
Listen, we are super excited. I saw you living your best life. For those of you that might follow Terrell on LinkedIn, I'm sure you saw some of the photos that were shared, and just really excited for you to tell us more about the trip. So let's start with why you went to Paris in the first place. Because, as much as I would have liked for it to be a recreational trip and, for it to be a shopping spree for the Turners, it was not. I was not part of that trip, but I have no hard feelings, because I think sometimes it's important for you to take time and spend time with other people other than your spouse who you work with. I was invited, to be fair. So let me put that out there. We just had to, like Terrell said, you said it really well. Like we're in this season of kind of a divide and conquer in our business and in our life. So it was important for me to be back home managing and helping with some stuff. But I'm excited for you to tell us, Terrell. So why did you go to Paris? Why Paris? Why Paris in September? What were you doing in Paris?
Yeah, so I went to Paris to actually attend a business conference, kind of business working session all for a week. Well, the company I went with was Up Leveling Your Business, and I'll even share here's a picture of the group that was there. The purpose of it was for us to really work with the lawyers, because most of the people in there are law firms. Up Leveling Your Business is company that was started by Kristen David, and is there to provide business coaching for different business owners. And she used to own a law firm. She grew it and she sold it. And then she used to work with another really big coaching firm. And she helped grow that one to, 12 million plus in annual revenue. So, she left that organization. She started her own. And so we were there to really help the law firm owners really wrap their minds around, running and growing the business side of their law firm. Many of the law firms are, multi-million-dollar firms, and they're trying to fine tune and tweak things to take it to the next level. Plus, there were a lot of activities we did throughout Paris and really tied it back to, hey, here's the business lesson in those things. So it was a really good trip.
That's awesome. First of all, I just want to give a special shout out to Kristen David. I love Kristen. Kristen is amazing. She's not only a phenomenal person and individual, which is important, but she's also a great business person. And I've learned a lot from her as well. So I think and I also I want to say, for those of you that are not watching this on video, I highly recommend that you do, because we're going to be sharing some awesome photos. But I really like the touch of the berets. I thought that was nice, especially being in Paris. It looked really good. But how did you, first of all, I think maybe we could talk a little bit about how you met Kristen, like where the relationship started and why you decided it was kind of a good idea to embark on this. Because I think sometimes when people think about, coaching or think about other activities, it doesn't really sound like a work activity, but in reality, I think some business owners you need to kind of get outside of your comfort zone or get outside of what the norm day to day is to really kind of strategize and think about ideas. So I feel like I've asked a lot of questions. Let's start with how you and Kristen met first.
Yeah, so I was actually, creating content, doing the business talk library, like one of our first shows that we started doing with interviews, and I had interviewed a marketing leader, and that marketing leader actually worked with Kristen, and she was
Mm,
doing marketing coaching for some of Kristen's clients, and Kristen was looking for, hey, someone that could help, the clients when it came down to finance and really getting a handle on the finance side of their business. So that's how Kristen and I met. Her and I, we had an introductory call. I liked a lot of the things she was doing, and she introduced me to like the program she was doing, which was very unique because
mhm.
in her coach, like when you talk to a lot of business consultants, a lot of times their coaching program is you work with that person helps you with everything related to your business. And where the approach that Kristen took is she was like, there are so many different areas from sales, from marketing to your diversity and inclusion, your client happiness, your finances, and just, someone to help keep you accountable on the targets and the things that you're doing. And so
Yeah.
she has a specialist coach in all of those areas. So when, someone is coaching with her, is she's connecting them to, hey, you need to work with Terrell on getting your finances down, or like, hey, you need to work with this person on your sales process, or hey, you need to work on this person on developing a marketing plan and stuff like
Mhm.
that. And so that's how I met her. It's just she was looking for a financial control coach. The content put me out there as a person who knew what I was doing in that space. We connected, and the relationship has just been growing.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, Kristen is I think the strategy is unique of what the team is doing at UIB because you're right. I think a lot of times when you encounter a coach, it's kind of a one size fits all. And depending on their strength areas, you may get, they may be really good at marketing, but not so good at the finance side or not so good at other sides. So I think it kind of takes me back to the point we've talked about and multiple business owners have shared on 500 plus interviews we've done, which is the importance of really niching down and identifying and kind of staying focused on what your strong areas are. And I think Kristen has done a really good job of staffing and building a business that is really based and grounded in the specialties and the strengths of other people. So leveraging other people's strengths. And of course, it's a mutual benefit across the board to really help develop and build the business. So that's great. I'm now excited for us to talk about some of the pictures and the experiences that you did, and really just kind of show a slide. So again, if you're not watching this on video, you probably want to go over to the YouTube channel to see some of the photos. So let's go
Yeah.
through them, Terrell.
So absolutely. This one was the Paris experience we did, in this year. Now last year, which was something Lola did join, we did the Seattle experience. And
Yes,
the idea of it is it's like it's a different way to do business coaching, a different way to do like a business conference where you have all these business owners. We come in, we enjoy the city while building in, business content. Like, there's like 2 of the days for a few hours we were actually in like a conference room talking through some specific things for the different business owners. They were able to share different ideas. Kristen had some specific things she was covering with them of helping them get over some hurdles. And then other times we were doing different activities throughout Paris. So I will say, prior to experiencing Paris with Kristen, I didn't really have a very high opinion of like, hey, Paris is a place I really want to go. I think because she knew the city well, and then
hmm
the activities we did, it made me appreciate Paris a lot more.
right.
I'll jump into the first activity that we did. One of the activities was the chocolate making class. Now this one was really fun because, as you can see, like, in some of the pictures, if you're watching it, and if you're not watching, you're just listening to it. You see pictures of me where we were making different chocolate treats, and we
Looks
had
good.
a We had a personalized chef that was there, and the personalized chef, he was, he is a master chocolate maker, and
Mm.
actually he's a chocolate designer.
Oh, wow.
Um which was pretty interesting, because when you walk into like the school that we were at, where you take the
Mhm.
class, they had a museum that you walk through first. And some of the things that they had made, where they had like, it was about like an 8 foot tall Eiffel Tower replica made
Oh,
out of
wow.
chocolate.
Oh, wow. That's a
And
lot
I
of
would say,
chocolate.
yes. And then they also had one, the Arc de Triomphe. It's a
Mm.
pretty big, popular, like you've seen it in movies that you've seen of Paris. Like, it's a pretty popular landmark. So they
Is
had
that the
that one.
one, that's the one that kinda looks like, you pass an underpass, you pass underneath it? It's like 2 towers? I don't even know, it's not really 2
Yeah, so
towers.
so I mean,
This is
it's like
embarrassing.
a, I guess you say it's an arc. I mean, it's a
It
really
Thank
big
you.
building.
It's an arc,
Um,
yes.
and it sits in like the middle of the road. So like you drive around, like if you've seen, like, was it the Mission Impossible movie where Tom Cruise
Yes.
was in Paris?
Yes.
Like,
Yes, I
he
think it was.
drives around that big circle. That's the
Yeah.
Arc de Triomphe.
Yeah, and I
Well,
know they have a lot of the action movies you see in Paris are centered around that. So, or if you another landmark is it's where all the shopping, right? All the designer
yeah,
shopping stores are. So you kind of walk down the two sides of the street and there's all the shopping and then you have the arc there. So, yeah.
absolutely, yeah. And so that arc was about what? It was about what, 3 feet high and about 4 feet wide. So it was a pretty big, and it had all the intricate designs and everything on it, to
Oh,
where I was just like, wow, they did a really good job.
that's pretty impressive. And I mean, for those that can't see the pictures, the chocolate looks really good. I mean, I think just the intricacy of, like, the designs is pretty awesome as well, but, um, I think it's impressive just to be able to see, like, the process of stuff getting created, and it looks like it can be very tedious, but, I mean, definitely looks like it was worth it.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great class. And like I said, the point of it wasn't just, hey, just go have fun. Part of it was also, it's just like,
The
hey,
business
what's the
lesson.
business lesson in it? So what
Exactly.
I would say is, from the chocolate class, one of the good things about, or one of the interesting things about chocolate, is that the recipe has been the same for like hundreds of years. Like,
Mm,
how you make chocolate, the recipe has not changed. But one of the things that you find is that, there are so many different brands of chocolate out there, to where it's
yep,
just like all of them are pretty much using the same recipe. They may tweak it a little bit, some of them may put a little bit more cocoa, a little less sugar or whatever, but for the most part the recipe is the same. But I mean, if you look at it, like, there are tons of chocolate, and there are people who are extremely diehard loyal, like, I only eat Godiva's chocolate, or hey, I only eat Nestle's chocolate, or
shout out to
whoever it
Bounty.
is.
Mhm, mhm.
and
They did not sponsor this show, but they should. Anyways, different story.
And so, I mean, one of the things that it really, we talked about a lot is, especially, like, so we were there meeting with a lot of lawyers, is that, you're not the only lawyer in the city. I mean, even for
Mhm,
us, I mean, for an accounting firm, you're not the only accounting firm in your city. And plus,
right,
because business can happen virtually, you're not the only accounting firm that people can do business with. So
right.
the question becomes is, how do you package, your chocolate, or how do you package your business in a way that relates to the audience you want to meet with? So, like, as you can see, like, when the chef was making some designs, one of the things that was interesting, how he showed us how to make those designs in the chocolate, to where he was like, there are some people who will not buy chocolate unless it has an intricate design on it.
Mm,
And he knows, like, hey, if those are the customers that I'm making chocolate for, I have to make it look a certain way, or they're not going to buy it. It may be the exact same chocolate, but if it doesn't look a certain way, they're not going to buy it. And
right,
you know, and I think that's been a very big thing for us. And even with, as we build out the TL Turner Group, whether it's the podcast that we're doing, is first figuring out who is the audience we're building the business for. And then
right.
it's just like, how do we make sure that we stand out in a way that's relevant to the audience that we're trying to reach? I mean, And I think, Lola, I mean, you've seen a lot of this from working on the marketing stuff like that. Any feedback you have on that?
Yeah, I was actually gonna say on the point that you made about like the chocolate one. I think that's a great point of you can take the exact same thing or say exact same information and just repackage it differently, and it's gonna have a completely different impact on your customer base than it would if you just presented them with some plain content. Because I think a lot of times, just even when it comes to business delivery, like if you're like I'm thinking like maybe like, for example, a flower shop. If you're delivering flowers to customers and you're just like, hey, these are the flowers, and you just put it there, and hey, they have to cut it themselves and they have to do all this. It's completely different experience than when the flowers come ready made. They're already in a nice, pretty box. All they have to do is take them out of the box, set them there, and then they can brag to their friends about, hey, I got these really pretty flowers and I got them from this place and blah, blah, blah. So I think sometimes is for me, what I've thought about on the marketing side is we're sharing the exact same content. Like I think accounting is actually a perfect example. The principles of accounting have not changed. They're not going to change. The basis is the same. So what makes you different in how you're delivering it to the customer? And I think for us, the biggest thing has been simplicity, right? Making the numbers make sense. That's what we're kind of known for. That's what I guess our brand has been, is the simplification of the information that we present. And so I think really being able to identify what's your distinguishing factor and how do you deliver and emphasize that distinguishing factor when you're communicating your product or your service, or communicating about your product to your potential customer base.
Yeah, and I think that is so true. I mean, it definitely parallels for all the people who have an accounting
Yeah.
firm or you're
Yeah.
working in accounting. Like the fundamentals of
This is a perfect
accounting have
example.
not
Yeah.
really changed much. I
Yeah.
mean, yes, there have been some things that have changed in, like, some of the
Like the
rules and
rulings.
regulations,
Hmm. Hmm.
and like generally accepted accounting principles, but for the most part,
Hmm.
the underlying stuff has stayed the same.
Right,
And and it
the
always.
numbers still add up. 2 plus 2 is still 4, like, of course, with the basic math. Credits and debits are still the same, like, but at the end of the day, like, the foundation itself has not changed.
Yeah. And it's one of
Mhm.
those things that as I'm talking to more business owners, one of the sad things that I'm hearing is that a lot of business owners are struggling because the accountant that they're working with hasn't grasped that, like, hey, I don't need you just to do the same stuff that any other accountant can do, because then your services are a commodity. What I need to
Mm,
know is, what's that unique thing that you add to accounting? Like for us, it is, we make complicated topics simple. Like our
yeah,
goal is really just to make the accounting and the finance stuff simple and usable by non-finance professionals, so they can actually make decisions using that data. And
yeah,
for us, like, that's the unique factor we're pushing. And I think for any accounting firm or any accountant, if you don't have a unique factor, then you're probably going to really, really struggle. And, your business, just like, there's a ton of chocolate that shows up in stores that nobody buys, although the recipe is exactly the same as the product right next to it. But it's because that packaging and that delivery doesn't really connect with the audience. No one buys it. And then that brand ends up, either being bought by another company for their production capacity, or that brand just runs out of money.
mm. No, that's really good. That's a really good correlation. But let's move to the next one because I'm excited about this next one. So what's the next experience?
So this next experience was one that really allowed me to create what I call the new masterpiece called T2, or I'm not sure if I want to call it T2. I
I don't
call
think you
it
should call
T
it
squared.
T2. I think T squared is more appropriate because, like, when you say T2, I'm like, okay, but like T squared is like, I'm intrigued. I'm like, what is T squared? Like, I can already see an ad, and who are we gonna have? Who are we gonna have on the ad? I was gonna say Idris Elba, but I don't know. It depends on our target audience. Like, who are you going for? Are you going for like an Idris Elba audience? Are you going for like a what's the name of the guy that did the boxing show? Oh my gosh, Wakanda Forever. Not the villain in
Oh,
Black Panther.
Michael B. Jordan.
Michael B. Jordan. Are you going for a Michael B. Jordan audience? I feel like T Squared might be a little corny going for a Michael B. Jordan audience. So it almost has to be like T2, but it has to be like a very strong like emphasis like T2. No. No, that
You
sounds
know,
corny. Okay.
now the reason why I was thinking about that is because like we went to this Candora, which is a private company that makes colognes and perfumes. And so in this, we had a private class where they walked us through the history and the chemistry, the science, and the business side of the cologne and the perfume industry. So in the class, you know, we learned a lot about that. And then, you know, the back half of the class, we actually got to make our own custom perfume or cologne. And
Mm-hmm.
so for me, it's like, you know, as he walked through the different, you know, history behind it, there was a lot of things about it that I didn't understand. And one of the things we talked about was Chanel number 5. Now, Chanel number 5 is probably
Very popular.
the most iconic perfume fragrance in the world. And one of the things that we talked about a little bit is just like why. And part of it is when it comes down to colognes and perfumes, like, you know, if you're really trained, you can smell a perfume and you can kind of start to pick out what ingredients they use in it. Now, you know,
Mm-hmm.
you may not know exactly what, but if you smell it, you can kind of, you know, figure it out if you're trained. The unique thing with Chanel number 5 is that Chanel number 5, the way that they blended it together, it's
Mm-hmm.
almost like even a trained expert perfumer cannot dissect and re-engineer Chanel number 5.
Wow, that's
I
actually
mean,
pretty impressive.
yeah, it is. I mean, and you know, because it's one of those things where it's like, you know, Chanel number 5 is so unique in that to where it was like the first perfume to be able to do that, to where it is blended so well. Now there's some stuff that they added to it,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
other than just your natural scents and stuff like that. So it was really good to understand that. Now, a interesting fact about, you know, the, you know, perfume and cologne industry, one of the things that he said is, you know, the perfume and the cologne industry like is dominated by like 7 brands. He was like, you know, to be honest with you, there's about, you know, 7 brands that run maybe like 90% of the industry from a business economic standpoint.
I didn't know
And
that.
when he put the 7 names up there, no
You
one
didn't
in the
know them.
class recognized any of the names. And one of the things that he taught, because people were saying like, well, why isn't Chanel on the list, or Gucci or Prada or Louis Vuitton, or even what, you know, some of the perfumes from like celebrity brands and
Right.
stuff. And
Right.
one of the things that he said is because the way that it works is these 7 companies are the ones that make those brands. Like those
Mm.
brands, what they do is they hire these 7 companies to make it, and then they take it, they put it in their bottles, they put their branding. So all those other brands that I just named, they are just brand names. They're the labeling. They're not the ones that make it. They're not the ones that come up with it. These 7 companies are the ones that do it. And I was like, oh, wow, that is very interesting.
I'm actually really curious to understand how that agreement works. Like, does the do one of those 7 companies, like, do they get a percentage cut every time there's a sale, or do they get a deal up front? I guess my business mind is just running. I'm really curious. I mean, of course, it has to be an incentive, a pretty good deal for them to continue dominating the industry, but I'm very curious to understand how some of those deals would work, because if they're the biggest, if they're the seven companies dominating the market, if I think about the entire market, I can kind of see where, hey, you have a good amount of customer base because people are coming only to you guys. And so I guess you can afford to kind of do more, maybe not, at a higher price, or not as high as you would if you had, I guess it was an inflated, not inflated, but if it was a saturated market.
Yeah, so I mean, the way it works is they do it, you know, one way to look at it, they do it wholesale. So
Okay.
they create the perfumes or the colognes, and then what they do is they put all the mixtures together. These companies, let's say like Armani is one that a brand that I really like. So
Hmm.
Armani has a contract with them and says like, "Hey, here are our bottles. Put this formula in this bottle, and then they ship the bottles to Armani, and then Armani does the marketing and Armani sells it. Whereas like they're the ones behind the scenes doing a lot of the wholesale deals. Now, what was also very interesting and a little unsettling
Oh,
was,
okay.
um,
What?
was some of these same companies. He was like, when you think about the business and they think about expanding, is when the chemists found out, like, hey, that they can create these different fragrances, mix different things, and they can come up with different scents. Because what people often don't realize is smells actually remind you of different things. Like
Oh yeah.
when you smell something, there's actually a picture that comes to your mind. And
Yep.
so when they realize, like, hey, it's all comes down to chemistry, and and they're these 7 companies trying to expand their brands, they also looked at, hey, what other industries can we get into? And so one of the industries that they are very into is when it comes down to food. And so he was
Okay, that
saying
is a little
about
bit unsettling.
he was like, for example, if you buy anything that has a fruit flavor, one of the things we know is that fruit grows seasonally. There is almost nowhere in the world where the same fruit grows all the time
Yeah.
year round. Now, there are
Yeah.
a couple places like when you get into like the tropics and stuff like that, like those type of fruits may grow year round because of the weather conditions.
Hmm. Hmm.
But for the most part, fruit is very seasonal. So he was like, for example, if you're eating yogurt with blueberry flavors, blueberries grow in a certain season. Now,
Oh
if you're
gosh.
eating, blueberry flavored yogurt in a non-blueberry season, it was
Oh
like, what are
no.
the chances that those blueberries were real? And
Oh wow. You're just eating the taste of blueberries with vanilla, plain vanilla yogurt, is what you're doing.
so what
Wow.
he said is what what these companies also do. One of their lines of business is that they make the I guess you'd say the ingredients or the
Hmm.
recipes to make your blueberry yogurt taste like blueberries,
Hmm.
where they mix that, they mix it in. Now it's edible, it's not like you're eating the same chemicals that they put in the perfume, but it's just one of those things of realizing, like, man, that is some very interesting, like, vertical alignment. Because I think
Yeah.
the business lesson there is, if you look at these companies, that what they're looking at is, hey, we figured out how to do perfume well, and we're dominating this market. Like, how do
Hmm.
we move into other markets? How do we take what we've learned here to get into other things? Like, and we're doing a similar thing at TL Turner Group. For example, like you mentioned with the perfumers, like when it comes down to, dashboard reporting and stuff, like for a lot of bookkeeping companies, like one of the challenges they have is, how do you present the data to your clients in a way that the client understands? We
Right.
have figured out how to simplify accounting for our clients and business owners. So one of the things we did, we started creating Google Data Studio dashboards. And so we're working with other firms, and we do a white label service where we'll create the dashboard in the background, we'll manage it for you. You put your logo, your company information, we provide it to you, you present it to your clients. And what some accounting firms are able to do is, they're able to charge their clients a premium,
Hmm.
and they're able to pay us to manage that in the back end for them. So it's like, other accounting firms are creating new streams of revenue while we're in the background doing the work, that engine for allowing them to have a more streamlined data and financial reporting process.
Yeah, and I think another good point there is also what I'm just taking away from the perfume experience is it's okay to be in the background. Like nobody knows, for not for all clients, but for some clients. Like for example, the clients that matter, which are those perfume companies or the companies that sell perfume, like Chanel, Armani, like they know who they need to go to, right? And those 7 companies are dominating the market and making the money that they need to make, making millions of billions of dollars every year. But like you said, when the names were put up on the board, nobody knew who they were, right? And so I think sometimes the marketing strategy is, so wide that you want to cast a net and you want to include everybody, but in reality, you can't. And so just be okay with, hey, you're going to niche down and focus on specific clients, which in this case, if I take the perfume example, they're completely focused on the B2B, right? They're focused on delivering to Gucci and Armani, who then turn around and sell it to the consumer. And in this case, they know who their audience is. And then that audience has provided tremendous opportunities. And now they're looking to kind of expand into another product offering. So I think it just means like, you can excel and do really, really well niching down and focusing on it. And it's okay. You don't always have to be the company that's in the forefront.
Absolutely. I mean, and I think that, what's becomes very interesting is some of the, most profitable companies are not necessarily the brands that you know by name. A lot of times, some of
Mhm.
the most profitable companies and some of the most stable companies are those companies that are in kind of like that B2B, like they provide services or support to the companies that like one of the things that we're realizing, like when it comes down to, like in the accounting and the finance industry, like providing that white label dashboarding service to other accounting firms it's a very profitable area because one is we're helping them be more effective for their clients. I mean, you
Right.
can think about the same thing like you think about a software like QuickBooks is, makes a lot of money because they provide a service to business owners or to accounting firms so that accounting firms can provide a service to their clients. And it's like when you start looking at your supply chain or you look at your business model, it's, when you're able to add in, how can we not only be a direct to consumer, but how can we also have a B2B kind of business model? I think it also helps you provide even more stability and longevity for your business because some of those companies that are, like I said, dominating in the perfume industry, like they've been around for a very long time because people may not want to wear Prada forever. Maybe there's going to
Right.
be a new brand that comes up. For them, it's just kind of like, we
It
don't care if
doesn't
there's a new
matter.
brand because,
Exactly. Our services still
we're going to
need,
provide.
yeah,
Yeah,
regardless of who you go to. Just like I think with the Google Data Studio, like regardless of what accountant you choose to go to or not, regardless of whether your clients come or go, like that's still something that needs to be done. So
absolutely. Absolutely. So the last thing I wanted to talk about was we did a pastry. We went to see a pastry chef and we did a pastry cooking class. And so that one was very, very fun because we got a chance to actually get into a French kitchen. Now, I will say the French are really, really good at pastries
oh yeah,
and they're really
100%.
good at I would say is like here in America, we tend to have very heavy pastries. Like
Mm.
the desserts are pretty heavy, and I'm a fan of them. I do eat them often.
Yes, that is if we could talk about a kryptonite, that is it for Terrell. It's the pastries. Oh my gosh.
Every now and then, I have a binge.
Binge. Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, those pastries is definitely a kryptonite. But hey,
But one of the things I always say that we had a lot of fun with was that, the pastry chef, one of the things she introduced us to, she was like, she was like, in America, a lot of your pastry dishes are a bit heavier. And part of the reason is because you may be using flour, but you're not using like 100% flour. A lot of times you guys in
mm,
America, you use like baking flour or all purpose flour. She was like, there is a very big difference when you use 100% pure flour. Because when you
mm,
use 100% pure flour, you're going to get that fluffier effect in the stuff that you make. And so we made things like eclairs. We made things, now in Brazil, we would call it pão de queijo. But in Paris, they call it something different. But what it is it is a fluffy piece of bread with cheese and seasoning mixed in.
the
So
best.
that was an amazing experience because, like I said, we got to to mix everything, we actually made everything from scratch. So we made our dough from scratch. We also made the cream that goes into the eclairs from scratch. As far as like, mixing all of the chocolate, whether it's dark chocolate or even with white chocolate, of mixing all of that, and then also designing, because as you can see in some of the places where I'm actually designing the dessert that we were making. So I mean, it was a great experience. And I think a big thing there is when it comes down to like, running an accounting and finance business, one of the things we run into a lot is that people tend to say, well, what other people are doing, accounting and finance. And even when it comes down to this show that we do, we talk a lot about some of the stuff that we're doing, the way we're doing it. Like I talked about the Google Data Studios. And sometimes some people are like, well, you shouldn't talk as much about, the things that you're doing and stuff. And you don't want are you afraid of people stealing it? And one of the things that I realize is like, you can look at my recipe, like to a certain extent, you can look at my recipe, but if you don't have the same ingredients going in, like for example, we are really, really good at simplifying accounting and finance for business owners and non-finance and accounting professionals. If you don't have that ingredient going in, you can copy everything that we do and you probably won't be as successful. Like you won't be a threat to me because I'm like, you don't have the same ingredients going in. And then also at the same time, I'm very, maybe this isn't the, for some people that may say this isn't the best way to run a business, but for me, it's just like, if my goal is to help the business owner as best as possible, if you hear what I'm saying and you are able to help the business owner in a way that is better than us, they should work with you and they shouldn't work with us, because business owners shouldn't be doing what's in my best interest. They should be doing what's in their best interest. And if their best interest is to work with you because you figured out how to serve them better, then hey, that's the way it should be. But I think at the end of the day is going back to like we talked about, like, with the chocolate making, is that the accounting industry has not changed. It is the same across the board. I mean, for the most part. I mean, what becomes different is the ingredients and the approach and the packaging that you put in. And the same thing with the, with this pastry making class, what I realize is some of these things like, oh, I want to try this at home. And she was like, hey, you can follow the recipe, but if you do not have the same quality of ingredients, it will not turn out the same way. And so that was a huge business lesson for me. And I think, like I said, overall, I mean, the Paris experience was great. Like I said, we got to see some landmarks. As you can see, the pretty cool hat that I got. We spent some time in the conference room and stuff like that. It was a really good time. And plus, I got to do a lot of walking. So it definitely kept me exercising.
Love. Yes. So that
definitely
looks
kept
like
me
it was a good
exercising.
experience.
Yeah, so I mean, it was definitely a great experience. I really loved it. A lot of business lessons that came from it.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a very good trip. And Kristen did not tell us to do this. This is definitely not a sponsored post, but I think the Paris experience is great. The Seattle experience was great. And I think Kristen does a really good job of kind of connecting what's going on in the individual cities. And she's just a fantastic tour. I mean, she lives in Seattle with her and her partner. And she also lives in Paris. So I think that local experience has been a great way and a unique way to see Paris, and same thing for Seattle. So shout out to her and the UIB team for this great event. And it's called Uplevel Your Business is the name of Kristen's company. So if you know a law firm that needs, coaching, phenomenal, or as Kristen likes to say, a butt whooping or an ass kicking, Kristen's team does a really great job with that.
Absolutely. And they've definitely recently released, they're doing the coaching program in Spanish as well. So they have Spanish speaking coaches. That avenue is definitely developing and growing. And also one of the things I also love is the resources, because sometimes it's not so much about like, hey, I just need to talk to someone. It's like sometimes you need the right resources to help you get things in place. Like they released like a hiring boot camp where it's like going through that process of like trying to find, the right people. Like, hey, here is a tried and true process for whether it's interviewing or getting people onboarded. And because one of the things that it becomes very, very important is, and we saw this in Paris as well. I mean, I will say Paris is not known for having the greatest customer service. It is not a place where people are just like, oh my gosh, I really felt like they really took care of me in Paris, or they
Especially if you
really
lived
took
in
care of me in
America for
France.
most of your life. I mean, it's not the same. There's a
Absolutely.
stark
And
difference.
so one of the things that we talked about a lot, like even some of the places we went to, like we went to some, Michelin star restaurants. So, I mean, these will be like, top of the class in the world type of restaurants. And some of it, like some of the service that we got, I was just like, this is a Michelin star place. And part of it, I think, is just, globally, we are going through this reality where, the labor markets are getting very tight and intense to where business owners are struggling to find, enough staff, where people may be very short staffed, or they don't have enough capital to really fund, being able to bring in all the staff that they need to, keep their business flowing as smoothly. So it becomes very important for people to figure out like, hey, the people that I do hire, that I am able to afford to hire, I need to make sure that we've structured this thing in a way that really allows them to be their best, and that we can have the best relationship and have the best output. Because when you're struggling to hire, and hiring costs are getting more expensive, you got to figure out how to be more effective and more efficient with the people that you do have, so that you can still maintain and grow and continue to support your business. And, so there are different programs like that I really like. Like, that is a phenomenal resource that a lot of people are using. And so I think using a different way of coaching, of finding out like, hey, what do you need? And we probably have a program or some resources, or we have a specific coach that can help walk you through that if that's what you need. So I really enjoy and like working with the UIB team, and I like what they're doing because it's helped us, even as a coach, it's helped us grow our business even more by just learning and using the same lessons that she's teaching other business owners. So definitely the UIB Paris experience was a great one. So thank you for letting me share my thoughts on the Paris experience and the business lessons.
Of course, of course. And thank you guys for tuning in again to another episode of Stuff Your Bookkeeper Isn't Telling You. Until next time.
Hey, it's your girl, Tia Robertson. I'm the host of Entrepreneur Insider. Right here on RETV, every Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern for entrepreneurs and news that you need to know about. See you there.
Millionaire Man Cave, only on Relationship Entertainment Television, Tuesdays at 8 p.m.
This is Tyron
and Nicole with your weekly RATV News Break. Each Thursday at 12 noon Eastern, we'll come to you with the latest news, trends, and more with a positive spin.
We know there's a lot of positive news that doesn't get reported, but we want to give you the opportunity to share your story here on RATV. If you have a positive news story you want us to share, you can submit your story to news@re-tv.net.
Don't forget to subscribe to the Relationship Entertainment Television YouTube channel. Download the new RATV Live app on your mobile device and follow Relationship Entertainment Television on your favorite social media platform.
Don't forget, make sure you tune into the RATV News Break each Thursday at 12 p.m. Eastern. Until then, be blessed and be great.
Welcome to What's Going On? My name is Demita Joe. Each Wednesday, you can find me here at 3 p.m. I'll be over here discussing different things that are going on and try to bring you a boost of positivity for your week because we all need this. We're going to share some feel-good stories. We might find a hometown hero. We may take a look at some trending topic. And sometimes we might even find a lesson in a not-so-warm and fuzzy story if we can. I'm Demita Joe, and I'll see you guys on the next episode right here on What's Going On?